Welcome to this chapter, VBA functions. Very interesting and very powerful. Why powerful? Because I'm not just talking about the inbuilt VBA functions, right? So we have the inbuilt functions as well, but then we have the UDF as well, user defined functions, which you can create yourself. Okay, user defined functions. So we also call them UDFs. Now, in Excel we have so many functions, right? You have taken the training as well from me. Now, the same functions are available in the VBA also, right? Most of the functions are written there as it is with the same concept, same parameters, no changes. In fact, if you find any Excel function like VLOOKUP or length function or maybe find function, you find that all these functions in the VBA as well with the same name and with the same parameters. So if you know the Excel functions, it is going to be so easy for you. That is uh, the category called the inbuilt VBA functions. Okay, so yes, there are a couple of functions which in VBA you find and you don't find in the Excel and vice versa. So we will be talking about that. Right now, the thing is, I cannot go and teach you I cannot show you all the functions. When I talk about the inbuilt functions, I will be giving you one or two examples. Like we will be talking about the VLOOKUP function. You can talk about the find function as well. You can talk about the mid function as well. In the VBA, the mid is known as instr function. Instr, right? So I can show you how to write the functions, and once you have got the idea, how to write the functions, how to use them, you can go and use them. You can go and use the other functions in the same manner, provided you know them in the Excel part. Because in VBA it's a little complicated thing. You don't get those parameters when you start writing like the Excel function. There is a Excel help which is given to us, but in that case in VBA you don't get that. In VBA you get the parameters like argument 1 comma argument 2 comma argument 3. So that's a little difficult if you do not know the functions in the Excel. So that's why it's always good to have the Excel information prior starting the VBA. So first we will go and discuss about the inbuilt functions, then we will be talking about the UDFs. Now UDFs means that any function which you find is not able to meet your requirement, you don't have any function. For example, let me just give you a very small example. You want to create a function for HR where they have the employee IDs and they have the they have the city, the city categories like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Like we have tier 1 is the area where you have a very high salaries. Tier 2 is the one where you have the not really that high salaries, and tier 3 is the one which is maybe on the remote sites, right? So there you don't really give the employees that much of the salary because the living cost is not that expensive, right? Sort of that. And then you have the age of network also. You want to take all these things into consideration before you give the salary hike. So you want to say that anybody who is from the tier 1, who is from the metropolitan city and having an age of network with the more than 5 years, for more than 5 years, he or she is associated with the company. Okay, and so what we want to do, we want to give them the 15% hike. And the same time, if you somebody who is from the remote area and he's got 5 years of association with the company, we would like to go and give the 5% hike, 2% hike, 3% hike, and whatever. Now this task can be, so this kind of a formula, in Excel also, if you go and write this, I think you will have to use the if functions, right? So in VBA, what we can do, because this if will involve so many logics, you have multiple conditions, so maybe you can put that all the logic, all that if coding inside some function, and you can name it, let's say Anand. You can give it a name. You can give it a you can give a name, a function, a name called Ajay. So when people start equals to and they type in Ajay, the function would come here. I'll just show you. So they are called the user defined function, and the user defined functions, you can create anything. Anything means anything. Okay, you become very powerful in this Excel VBA. So first we will be talking about the inbuilt functions. I'm going to show you how we can write the inbuilt functions. So now the very first thing I will do is I will start giving you the demonstration on the VLOOKUP function. A very simple VLOOKUP function I will create, and then I'll make it complex. I'll show you if you have to run the VLOOKUP with the loops, how you can do that. By the way, on my channel also you have a playlist called Excel VBA functions. It has around 15 I think videos on the different functions. Anytime you want to do any revision, you want to learn more, because you know it's not possible for us to cover all the functions. So once your concepts fundamentals are clear in this training, in this classroom training, you can go and watch any video on the functions, right? So I write here very small database. Let's say I write here name Ajay, and I write here Rahul, I write here Matt, Venkat, let's say Alia, and then let's say Rahman. A very small database I'm writing. I'm going to write their marks as name. This is the typical example I take in my every class. Now you have the names, and what you want to do is so this is your, let's say, a database which is a main database. So let's imagine we have here maybe 1000, 2000, 3000 records. That's not the thing. You know, function works the same way. It doesn't matter what data size you have. So here I write Rahman, Alia, Venkat and Ajay. Let's say these are the 4 people. I want to find out their marks. Now first thing in this exercise is that you need to keep in mind that all the names are available. All the names are available in main database, right? In main database, this is the clause. I mean, I'm not going to write here anything which does not exist in this. Why? Because I know if you don't get that name, you will get the error. Right now, this is not an Excel function that you simply just go and write the if error, you know. Like, let me quickly first of all recap, if you guys just want to understand how we're going to use the VLOOKUP. The first parameter in the VLOOKUP is lookup, which I am going to look up, which is Rahman. And then, you know, this is how we go in this table. We select this table, which is from F8 to G14, and then we go and pick up the second column number and then the exact match, right? This is how we do it, because the marks fall in the second column number, and that's how we get the answer. And then we go and freeze the table as well. Now you know that if I go and drag this, if you know the VLOOKUP, then a name, if I enter anything here which does not have a value in the name in the primary table, that will show as an error. Now in the case of the VBA, in the case of the Excel, you may go and write if error, and you can say that, you know, if the error comes, let's just display this as a space. This is how it works, isn't it? But guys, in Excel VBA, it is not going to work like that. For that, to handle the errors, you have to be quite proficient in, you know, the error handler chapters, which we haven't done yet, right? Which we will be doing later. So right now, when it comes about the functions, I'm going to make sure that there should be no error coming over here, right? So I just go and write here Ajay, okay? Because in VBA, if you if you write the VLOOKUP in the VBA, it will not, you know, going to work as an if error. It will throw the error because the VLOOKUP won't be able to find this, you know, the person, and the code will stop. Code will go in the debug. So we have definitely a ways to do that. I mean, we can control the situation, but right now we haven't done that topic yet. So right now what I'm doing is I'm keeping all the names, only those names which are available in the main table, right? This is my first condition. Now let us go and write the program in the Excel VBA quickly. So I go to the developer tab, I go to the Visual Basic. We will go and create a subroutine where we will write the function. So I go and write here sub my VLOOKUP function. I go and write it like this. Now let us go and start the program. So now you know that, so let me just put this way. We can, because I have to show you the VLOOKUP function. So let's go and, yeah, this is how it is. So I will go and write my function here. Now you know the first value I want is for the Rahman, right? So the Rahman is on the 11th row, you know that, right? So I can write here. So what is the column, by the way? The column is, it's the K column, right? So I can write here K column. So I go and write here range and then K and then 11. So in this cell I want a value which is what? Which is to look up this Rahman. To look up this Rahman, let me just fix it. To look up this Rahman, which is in the range J11. But before you do that, you have to write the VLOOKUP function. So when you write the VLOOKUP function, you don't see any parameter coming here, guys, right? So when you don't see the parameter coming here, what you need to do, you have to know that this function is in which class. Now in Excel VBA, when you go to this object browser, right, when you go to this object browser, you find most of the functions here. You find most of the functions here. So if I just go and type in VLOOKUP and I search on it, you see that this VLOOKUP is a member of this class. I told you about the classes before. Classes are the place where all the objects are defined, and every object is different. So for every object we have a different class. Now you can go and check out all the different functions in this worksheet function class. This is your class basically. So you'll find here all these functions. You know, some of these functions does not even exist in Excel, right? And many of the functions, obviously even I do not know what they meant for, but I have my VLOOKUP. This is how it is. And there is some function called the web service also, must be related to some web scraping. So what I'm supposed to do here now is I go and write here worksheet function. This is how you write worksheet function dot then VLOOKUP. You start the VLOOKUP. Now you see, this is what I was talking about. You have the arguments but not clear. So if you have a good practice in Excel, you know the argument one is obviously the value which I want to find it out, which is range. So K, it is K, so it's going to be J. So I write here J11 dot value. Second parameter is my table. So what is your table, guys? Your table should start with the range, which is what? F8, F82, G14. F82, G14 is your range, and then the argument 3, I need the second column and the exact match. Press enter, and that's how your function is ready to now start. So let's go and run this function. Let's see if we can get the value. So I'm going to run this. There we go. So the moment I run this, you know what we are going to look up? Rahman. In which table? F82 G14. So there we go. You can see that I got my value. Right now I was talking about that what if you have something here called double H, let's say. Now what happens in this particular case, obviously when you run this function, you'll get the error, unable to get the VLOOKUP property. So if you know the error handler chapter, which means if you know how to deal with the error, then you can write that if this error number comes, which is 1004, then do this and do that, maybe skip that or whatever, you know. So that is something we will do later. Right now we are focused only on the values which are available in my table. Okay, so I go and run this again. I press F5 and you can see that now we got the 75. So this is very simple function. You have just used the VLOOKUP, and you know, if you know the Excel VLOOKUP, it is so easy. Now the question comes is that because you want to go down also. Now to move in the downward direction, what are you supposed to do? You have to change the lookup every time when you write the function. You know, that is what we needed. Rest, the function, the concept remains the same. So how you can do that? This is what we are going to see now. Let me reduce the size of this text a little bit. Okay, so now guys, this is what I'm going to tell you. Now I go and club this VLOOKUP function with my loops. Okay, so I go and write here sub VLOOKUP, because I want to go to every cell. So I go and write here VLOOKUP with the loops. Okay, now the first thing is, because you want to run this loop here and then you want to go downward, so how many times you need to run the loop? Well, you need to run the loop, you know, 4 times actually. So we will capture the loop, the cell where we want to start. So maybe I can say that I want to start from 11 to 14. You know, why 11 to 14? Why not 1 to 4? Well, because then I can use this I variable in the cells command and I can give the row number. I can directly refer to the row number, right? This is something we have done many times. So I simply go and write here dim I, or maybe row, you know, I can write here row as long, and then column will remain same, so we are okay with the column. So and then dim j as long, and I start my j equals to, for j equals to it should start from 11, right? 11 to the last row. So maybe I know the last row will be captured from the control up arrow, so you can write here 10,000 dot end xl up dot row. This is dynamic. You have made the function dynamic, guys. Very simple. I do not think so we need the row number. We can delete that. So I just go and remove this. One variable is sufficient. So when you write this, what you need to do now, here you cannot go and use the range command. I think you can use the range command, there is no problem. You can simply, because your range your command, your cell is going to be k, so you can concatenate that k with the j, isn't it, guys? You can write like this, or you can use the cells command as well. I'll just talk about that right now. Your k and j becomes k11 because the j will start from this 11, and then you start writing the VLOOKUP function. So now what is the first argument in the VLOOKUP? Well, the first argument in the VLOOKUP has to be R, isn't it? Range R. So range J, and then join it with the J, isn't it? Now remember, this J is not this J. I mean, this is not a cell. This is a variable. So instead of that, I think I should declare this R. That's much better. Otherwise, maybe you can get confused. So I just go and declare this R like this. Okay, so let's go and declare this R in this way. R or maybe row would be better. That's how you can do that. So I'm just going to use this R as row, and same thing I'm going to use it here. Okay, now what is a table remains the same, there's no problem. So you write here F8 and now G14, and in this case you don't have to freeze it because this is a VBA, this is not Excel. This F8 to G14 will remain static, it will not change, so you don't have to put the $sign. That's a good thing here. So once I'm done with that, so let's go and so I see some problem. I think maybe the bracket is the issue. Yeah, so this is how I think now k will increment, and every time it will pick up the new value, and you will have a new lookup coming here from the J, and that lookup will be found in this F8 to G14. So we can go and check that. I just go and just put it here. Alright, so let's go and run the code. Wrong number of arguments. So what is the issue here? I think I forgot to write the dot value, right? Because what I want to look up is, I want to look up that value, range j dot row. Okay, again one more mistake, this should be row. Now we're good to go, I think, finally. So we go and run this. So row is going to start from 11, we know that, so k11. So in the k11, what you're going to print, this is k11, if you remember, this is the k column, right? So here I'm going to look up, I'm going to look up Rahul, which is coming from j and 11, which is this one. It goes in this table F8 to G14, and it is going to pick up the second column, and that value the VLOOKUP returns that is going to put here in the k11. So you have the k55 coming here. Now we will go for the next row. Now the next row is going to be 12. So we have now k12. So in the k12 now I again go and look up what now? You can see that it's Alia. So the name is changed, right, automatically, because your row is changing. That's how you have made the function dynamic. So same way, guys, this is how the function will start and stop. So you can run this. Now if in future I have some more values, let's say I get the mat also here. Now if I run this function, this is going to work. If I just run this, if I click on the F5, you see that function works because of this last row. Now if you have the same column, maybe on the if you have some more headers, for example, so let me just copy this. So how to go about that? Well, that also remains the same. Conceptually nothing changes, you just have to modify the code. So let's say I have here some more header called status, and I write here male, 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 female, let's say female, and I go and write something maybe uh, let's say the board, CBSE, CBSE, ICSE, ICSE, international, international. Now this is my table, okay, and let me just copy and paste the formatting. Now let us go and see how we can use the VLOOKUP now. If I have to evaluate multiple, these values. At the same time, I'm on the different sheet, right? You're on the different sheet. So here this is what you need to do. Let's say you have this is how the marks, status and everything is coming. So you have to, write the VLOOKUP here. So let's go and talk about that. Now before we go, we want to first of all understand the concept. Now concept obviously remains the same. You will use the VLOOKUP, you will go and find out all these lookups in that table, which is now belongs from the sheet 2. So in the VLOOKUP now sheet 2 name would come before you go and start writing the range called C3 to F9. So that is there. And another thing is, once you are done with the marks, then you have to go to the status, and then you have to go to the board. So you have a choice. Maybe you can first go row by row. First you go column wise, and then you go to the next row, then you cover all the 3 columns, then you go to the next row. But I think this would be better for us. This is much easier for us, that first cover the marks, row wise go down, and then once we are done, then again run the another loop, which is going to now change the column, and then again on the same row numbers. So that's how we're going to do it. So let's go and quickly run this code. So I simply go and just delete this. We can have some space here. Yeah, okay. So now I go and write the function here. So dynamic. Okay, so here I go and write. Now first thing which I need to do is I declare my again row as my row. Let's say my row as long. I think I require the column as well. So let's go and check that. First of all, I want to run the loop. So how many times I want to run the loop? Well guys, you have 3 columns. So let us go and first make sure that you should run the code 3 times. So I go here and I say that for my code equals to 1 to 3. Next call. Next my code. Okay, or maybe you can write here column wise. That would be great. Column wise. So we are going to cover all the columns one by one. So I go and write here column wise, and this, let me declare this as row wise. Right now, this is the loop to move to different column, to move to next column one by one. This is the task. This is what you need to do. Okay, now so once you are on this column, before you go for this column, I want to first go down. So how many times I have to run the loop? Well, your data is on the row number 4. So let me do one thing. Let me go and start here another loop, which is a sub loop. We have done this so many times. I start with the row number 4 and I want to go to which row? I do not know. Maybe the data can expand. So I'm making it sure that it should start from, let's say, C1000, because I know I will never have this big data. So I capture the row number of control up arrow from the C1000, and you will get the row number, which is 9. So basically your code will run 4 to 9, and then next row wise. This is how it is. Okay, so this is your inner loop. Now in this inner loop, first I go and target all these names, and we want to find out the marks. So how are we going to find out the marks? The column is J, the column is D, right? And then we will have E, and then we will have F. Now if I go and write this range command here, and I write D, and then join it with the row wise, you will get the D4, and the D4 will be targeted. But the point is, when you're done with the marks, you have to go to the status, which is in the E column. then this will create a problem for you, because you can't change this D to E. That is why my option, my choice here is cells command. I'm going to use the cells command here, because this is giving me both the parameters and I can make both the parameters dynamic. Now you know that you have to target the row number row wise, which is 4. What would be the column, guys? Now the column ideally should be what? Column should be your 4, because you are on the D column, so you can write here 4, isn't it? We can write it, but why don't we just go and write here this column wise parameter and just go and change this column from 4 to 7, isn't it? We can do that, right? This is my 4th column, this is my 5th column, this is my 7th column. And to make this dynamic again, you can also create from here, you know, control left arrow. I will not do that, but you can do that. I mean, just in case if you have more parameters, you can use here instead of this 7, you can write that command that from the, or maybe let's do it. What is a big deal? We can write here xfd and xfd3. xfd is your last column. These are just the basics I'm telling you. And then you say that XL to left and then capture the column number. So what will happen, it will go in this xfd3 and using the control left arrow, and it stops here and we will capture that. So basically you're doing nothing, you're telling your VBA to run 4 to 7 times, and now this 4 would come here, and so this makes sure that I'm on the 4,4. That is why I'm using 4,4, means that you are on the D4, right? So here we will use the worksheet function. Now worksheet function, you have to write it, otherwise you won't be able to use the VLOOKUP function. Some functions need their class to be prefixed, some don't need that. So you will come to know when you write the function and you start writing open parenthesis, if the parameters shows up, that means function is good to go. If the parameter doesn't show up, make sure you write the correct spellings. If the spellings are correct, then make sure that function exists, and you're sure about it, then please make sure that you should be prefixing the class of that function. Go and write that again. So argument 1 is your value you want to look up. So I can copy this, you know, because this is what we need to look up actually. We just change in the column. So you write here -1. Why -1? Because your lookup is on the C column. So when you go and start writing this, when you go start running this loop, the column will be 4. So this is fine. We want to target this one, D4, but in the D4 the value which we want to print, that should come from this C4. So that is why I am subtracting -1 from it, right? And then comma, what is the argument 2? Argument 2 is your table, and you know your table is in the sheet 2. So if the table is in the sheet 2, you have to write the sheet name, sheet 2, and then range C3 to E9. This is how, and then 2, 0. So this is your function, right? So let's go and run this. Now there we go. Please make sure that you should be on the sheet 3 before we write the function, right? Obviously, well, you create here some button, so we don't have to write this because the user will click on this button only before we, you know, the user go to the sheet 2. The VLOOKUP goes and capture the data from the sheet 2. But still, I have mentioned it that you got to go on the sheet 3. Okay, now I just go and run this. So I start the code from here. There we go. Now the column starts from, you know, the 4, and before we go for you know, from 4 to 5 and then from 5 to 6, this inner loop will run. and this inner loop will run from 4 to 9. So we are going to run this 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, which means 5 times I'm going to run this. So let us go and start this. So now I start this, I'm on the row number 4 and then the column number 4. So I'm going to target my D4. In the D4, which value I'm going to pick up? It is going to be, if I just put this on the watch window to show you, you can select this and right click and we can use the watch window because local window won't be useful here. Empty watch expression, I guess there's some selection problem here. Yeah, so we have got the Ajay. You can see that, guys, I got the Ajay, and this Ajay VLOOKUP will find out for me, right? So VLOOKUP will look up this Ajay where in the sheet 2, and in the sheet 2 the range is C3 to E9. Yeah, so I run this and we got the 44. Clear? We got the 44. Time to go to the next row. What is the next row? 5. So in the next row 5, that means the row number 5, but the column is still 4, right? So that means row number 5 and column number 4 is your D4, D5. So now you are going to target the D5. In the D5, what I'm going to pick up? Rahul. You can see here, right? Because column remains the same, 4 minus 1. That makes it 3, but the row is changing now. So basically we are looping this in this way that first it goes down and it stops and then it's going to pick up the status. So let me quickly run this. This is, I think, quite clear to us. This will fill all the values. Now once you have all the values filled up, what is the next thing, guys, you want to do? The next thing which I want to do is, obviously I want to go to the next column, and now you have a next column. So your next column is 5. That means now the function will again start, the row wise will again start from the 4 to what? 4 to 9. So you have again the row as 4. So this time you are targeting the 4, but the column is changed now. Now the column is 5. So you're on the column number 5 and the row number 4. That makes it E4, right? That makes it E4. So I'm going to target my E4, and in the E4 I have my this VLOOKUP, which is going to look up the value, which is going to be again Ajay. It should be Ajay. Let's go and check that. So we have a row 4, which is correct, and the column is 5 minus 1, and the 5 minus 1 will make it what? 5 minus 1 will make it 4. So we have a problem here, big time problem. If you look at this, in fact in your watch window also, you see that it shows 44, but are you trying to look up 44? No, you're trying to look up this one, Ajay. So what happened? Basically, because this column changed from 4 to 5, you have here 5 coming, and 5 minus 1 is making it 4, but you need the name which is in the column C. So actually this should be column 3. Now you know what I think? You shouldn't have used the variable here, because lookup will always be on the column number C. Row numbers will increment, and that is, we can take care of that part using the row wise parameter, because row wise parameter is incrementing one by one. So I think this is a bad step. As I say that, when you write the programs, you do the mistakes and then you test it, and that's how you sort them out. So here I simply write row wise comma 3, because I know my all the lookup values are on the column C. So let's not change them. Row wise I keep it, because Ajay, Rahul, Matt, Venkat, Alia, we have to go one by one on all the cells. So I go and press F8. Now you can see that you got the F8 here, so I can show you this. This is how it looks like now. So let's go and run this. So we got the 44. Next time we got the 55. I think I find a problem here, because this my value is not showing me the proper results. So I have to delete this, because this is no more now column wise -1. I go and delete this. I have to put the new watch window here. So let me put that. I just go and put that on the watch window. Just a second. This is the one. So let's go and delete the previous one. So now in this window I have my the lookups coming properly, so the function is working actually. So now we have Venkat, we have now Alia, so everything is now good. Now once you are done with the Rahman, time to go for the bigger loop. So now you go to the column wise loop. Now in the column wise, what is the column now? It is 6. That means this is the column we are targeting now. And then this loop again will start from 4 to 4 to 9. So we will again have this loop running 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this is my now row number 4 and this is my column number 6. So on the row number 4 and the column number 6, we are talking about F4. Now in the F4, what we are saying, what we want to print is that the VLOOKUP should pick up this value which is in the row number 4 and the column number 3. So what is your row number? It is 4. 4 means that you're targeting Ajay, and you can see here. So Ajay is going and looking up in which table. I already explained that. I think that's very simple. It's going in the sheet 2 range C3 to E9 table and giving us the second column number, right? So now the thing is, if you look at this carefully, I just realized that though the numbers are coming, the loop is going perfect, but there is one problem, and the problem is that it shows me all the record the same. The marks, status, board, everything is coming same, right? Well, that's okay, but first I wanted to check that whether the loop is working properly or not. So the loop is working properly. Why we don't have the different results here? The reason is that when I use the VLOOKUP for the status, it has to be a column number 3 and then 4, right? If you know the Excel VLOOKUP, we know what we are saying. So I have to automate the task. I have to make this particular column number which we write here in the VLOOKUP, you have to make this column number dynamic, because right now you cannot manage with the 2. So what you can do is you can write here some variable called let's say var, okay, and then you can make you can do one thing. Every time when your loop stops, it goes out of the row wise, you go and increment that by 1, var equals to var plus 1, so that we can have that column number used here, right? And then you have to declare obviously that var also here, var is long, and then to begin with you please write here the column number. So the column number should start from 2, because the first time when we want to run this loop, it has to be marks. The marks is going to be in the second column of this table, and then 3 and then 4, and that's how it is going to work, right? So let us go and run this now. I go to the Visual Basic here. So this is, I will just go and write it down for you. This is my to increment the column numbers. This is how it is. So let me go and run this code. Okay, so let's go and run the code now. There we go. So now this code will start. I have not done any changes. I think I really don't have to explain this again. The only change which I have done here is just I had made this this particular part, this VLOOKUP part, this one as dynamic, right? This is the only thing I have done it. And I told you this thing in the beginning also. If I haven't told you, if I have to write this is a big line, and I have to go to the right side to check it. So maybe you can do one thing. When you write the function, you can let's say after this comma you can put the underscore and you can press enter like this. So what happens when you give the space and when you press the underscore, VBA treats both the lines as single line. That means after the underscore, if VBA finds any line here, it is going to be in the continuation. It is going to be considered in the continuation of this line, right? So why I'm writing this, so that I can explain you. That's it. That's the only reason, right? Or sometimes when you also do the debugging, you don't have to scroll to the right side. So you can simply go and put the underscore. If I remove the space from this underscore, you see that this is what it says. So please remember, it is going to be a space and then underscore, right? So writing the space with the underscore So space underscore followed by a space is a way to handle long lines, right? You can use it as many times as you need it, right? Now obviously in VBA we don't have really that big lines, but in when you write the SQL syntaxes in let's say Access VBA, when you learn the Access VBA, there the syntaxes are very long syntaxes, very long queries, so there definitely you need this. So this is just for your information. So I go and start the code now. There we go. So the first thing which I have is row number is 4, column is my 4. So we will use the marks, you know how we're gonna get, and interestingly var is also coming too. Remember, it is my column number of the VLOOKUP. So we will have this code run quickly. You can see now I'm making sure that next time when the var should come, it should be 5. Okay, it should be 3, because it was 2, now it is 3. So now the next time when the code runs, your column number is also incremented. So now you have a column number 5 and you have a row number 4. That means you're targeting the E4. But in the E4, my function VLOOKUP will pick up what? It will pick up the row number 4, but the column number 3, which means it will pick up the Ajay. It will go and pick up the Ajay and it will go in the sheet 2. And that is how, guys, you can see that now you got the correct answer because your var is also 3. So this is going to fill, and now we have another var coming here. Now next time when you run, you have a 4, which means VLOOKUP will go and capture the 4th column number of this table. So you will have the answer. Okay, so we're getting some problem here. Let me go and check that. What is the issue? So our row number is 4, our column number is 6, and then what we are supposed to find here is we are supposed to find Ajay. What about the var? The var is 4. Okay, so the var is 4, and I got the problem, guys. You see what happened? Because it is a VLOOKUP error, so the problem must be in the VLOOKUP, and the problem could be you don't have that value found, but we know all the values are there. But then I just saw that my table actually starts with C to E. So in a table called C to E, you cannot find, and you cannot find the 4th column, and your function is right now showing you the var as 4, obviously, because you have to find, what do you have to find? You have to find the board. So this is my mistake. I should have made it F9 actually, right? Like this, right? Now you can see that the function works. The function is working now. So I go and run this, and this is what happened. This is not coming because I was on the different sheet. So, that was perhaps the reason. But if I quickly go and run this code again from the fresh, I delete this and I just go and run this quickly. I go and press F5. You have the function in front of you. Okay, now let's say you want to write this function, you want to write the VLOOKUP from the different workbook. Now when you have that kind of a situation, when you have a database in the different workbook, then you can, instead of this before the sheet name, you can insert the workbook name as well. The concept remains the same. So this is how you can use your VLOOKUP. And when I will be talking about the error handlers chapter, I will again show you this VLOOKUP example, because it is quite obvious, it is very much obvious that we can have values which does not exist, in your the main sheet. Okay, so how to handle that? So we will be coming back to the VLOOKUP, and at the same time we will be learning the error handlers as well. So both the things will be justified, right? So this is how it is. So in fact, in your next chapter, we will be talking about that, right, after the functions. So this is how you write the functions. Couple of more functions you can go and if you want to understand how we write them, you can do that. For example, if you want to find the length of this, for example, I go and write here the length, okay, or maybe I create the different sheet. So let's say you have the names here and you want to find the length using the VBA. Okay, how you can do? Well, first of all, you go and find whether that function exists there or not. Now, what is the method? I told you the method is you just write here length function and see if the parameter comes, the function exists. If the function doesn't exist, then maybe you can go quickly to the object browser and you can write here len and just hit on the enter. Now len must be a member of some class, and the class is worksheet functions. So you go and see that the member L here, and there we go. So there is some another function which is lnb. I do not know, but this is a function and this is now a part of a class called strings. So guys, basically in VBA I have seen two major classes. I have never used any other class. I do not even know if we have any other class for the functions. So one is the strings. In the strings you have all these functions. These are all the functions related to string category. Right trim, left trim, you have all these functions, and then you have here the another category called the worksheet function. This is a class, this is another class. So if you're trying to find out any function, maybe you can go and click on these classes and you can see that whether that function exists or it does not exist. This is how you can do this task. So we have the function length, we know that, so let's go and use the length function. So I'm going to write here another subroutine, get length, and now I'm going to be targeting my, again I will have to use this with the loop. So I go and write here dim r as long. I will start my r with 4 and I just go and create here length. Please mute. For r equals to 4 to range f 1000 dot end xlr dot row next r. This is what is going to happen. So now we use the range. We start with the g, we concatenate g with my row number, which is r dot value equals to length. Now since I start the function and I have the parameter, no need to write the strings, but still this is just for information. You can write it, it is not going to harm you, but otherwise also it is okay because I was able to see the parameter name. What is the expression? Obviously the expression would come from range, the value which is in the f column, right? So you go and concatenate f with your r. So this is how it is, dot value. So we got that value and I close the bracket. So there we go. So now you have the function in the running mode. I go and create this. Now you can see that the function is working, right? That's how, guys, that's how you use these functions, right? So you can learn more about these functions. You want to find out how to use the find function or left function, right function. We have all these functions in VBA, right? And the procedure remains the same. There's no difference. You have just seen how we basically use the loops, and how in the loops we use some variables and the function itself. Till now, you have any questions, guys?
Ajay, I have one question. Hello. I have seen my colleague, they were using that application dot for formula and double inverted comma, and again double inverted comma and equal to sign, and they just copied that formula from, they typed in Excel and they used from Excel to that VBA. So
See, basically now what happens, people who are not efficient in the VBA programming, they record the macros for that. Now for example, you have this same task. This is the same task we are going to do with the different style, right? So let me just undo it, sorry, let me go back to the sheet. Now you just saw that how we combine the VLOOKUP. We use the loops and we find out the values. Now let's say you do not know how to use the VLOOKUP in VBA, you're not that proficient. So what is the option now? You still have to automate this. Then in that case, what you can do is you can go and record this macro and write the VLOOKUP. So I'm going to do the same thing. See what I'm going to do. Then obviously your macro editor will have some issues. Then if you know a little bit of the VBA, you can make the, edit the code. So I go and record the macro. I record the macro and I write here VLOOKUP using my record macro. So VLOOKUP macro editor. Please mute. So now I go and run this. So my recording starts. I write here VLOOKUP. I look up this value and then I go in the sheet 2, and in the sheet 2 I go and select the data, the column number 2, comma 0. This is what I do. Now I know that if I just go and drag this down, my VBA will, macro editor will make this reference as static. This is what we have learned in our introduction also. So in order to make this formula dynamic, to go to the last row, because you do not know when you run the formula next time, maybe you have more names. So first I go here, because this is how it is, and from here I can use the control down arrow, and I come here and then I say control shift up arrow and control D. Control D is basically drags the formula. I'm trying to make the code dynamic. That's what I'm trying to do. Then you go to the status, you go and write the VLOOKUP again, you pick up this Ajay again, and you go and write this function again, and then you write the column number 3 and then 0, right? This is how, right? And again I go and freeze this entire part. This is also very important. I think I didn't freeze in the first this section, but that's okay. We are just trying to understand how this thing works. But I strongly encourage you not to use this, only if you, you find that somehow some exercise, there is a project where the client has asked you to copy and paste some formula specifically, maybe in that case you can do that to copy the formula from some cell and to paste it exactly the same, on your cell. So you're basically bringing the formula from another sheet of another workbook and you're going to paste it there. Then that is something you can record in the macro editor. Otherwise I don't think so. So here again I go and repeat the same step, this one, and then I go here, I select the data and I say now 4 0, right? This is what I do, and then I freeze the table. So all the steps are recorded. Now I go again in this and then I say control down arrow and I come here, control shift up and control D. So once my macro is done, let's go and check that if we are able to do this. So we will go and edit this. Let's go to the Visual Basic, control R. This is the new module which is created. So this is the module. I should go and give it a name called macro editor VLOOKUP. Okay, so now you can see here, this is how the formula comes. Now when the macro editor creates the formula, it is not going to create the way you write the formula, right? It creates that R1 and C1 reference, and which you, if you want to understand, you can, but it's of no point. There's no fun to understand this. Let's go and check that whether the formula is working or not, because this basically R C minus 1, it refers to row and the column. So -1 means that it is referring to the -1 column from the active cell. That is what it means, right? Now active cell dot formula R1C1 means that on the active cell, so you should be on the D4, because this is something my macro editor did not record. So maybe to make sure that I should always be on the D4 when the macro starts, you should write here. Otherwise the formula will start on any active cell, so we can write here select. Now when you do that, so see what will happen. I go and run this. Now this is how the formula starts working. Okay, so object doesn't support this property or method. So I active cell formula R1. Okay, I think the problem is here. Sorry, this has to be the one. Yeah, somehow I think C got deleted by me, maybe, I don't know, but this is okay now. So I go and start once again range d4 dot select. So let's go and run this, guys. So we have finally the formula. Now if you look at this, one thing more, there is one more difference. Now when you run, when you make the formula like this, what happens, your formula gets printed here, and this formula, when you click here, it shows you the reference also. But if you go back to your VBA code, this one, the function which you created, you will not find here any VLOOKUP, because that is something you have written in the programming. That is the difference between your VLOOKUP and when the Excel records, because Excel generally, it's trying to print this entire syntax. It says dot formula r1 c1 and it says equals to. So this is a very different way of writing, right? So this thing you need to always remember. Now recently I was working on a project, and my client said that first I created the entire project I created, and there were some formulas which I was using, and so VLOOKUP was one of the formula. So I created it in my style. I created all the VLOOKUP in my style. I did not use the macro editor, obviously. So when I forwarded the file to him, the output was coming, but then he came back and said that due to the auditing process, my auditor also wants to see the formulas how they are placed, because it was recorded in my own, we wrote the program by ourselves. We wrote the VLOOKUP ourselves. We did not take the help of the macro editor, though there were no formulas, though the values were correct. So then I had to edit that part. So then I use this part, because if you use this part, macro editor, the formula will remain there and anyone can go and check that. So these are the things, I'm not saying which is better, which is superior. It just I think the matter of choice also, and sometimes it's your project choice also, your uh, the compulsion. Because in my project which I was, when I was working, due to that auditing thing, I had to record the macro, and then I had to do, I had to follow this sort of approach, because in this approach I can show my formula live, and then they can go and auditors can check, that's how it is. So anyways, let's go and check that. Now you see that I go in the C4. In the C4 I use control down arrow, right? Now when you use the control down arrow, please don't be on the D9. This is the one of the shortcoming of the Excel macro editor, because who knows, maybe the next time I have number of rows till row number 20. So what we have to do here, we simply use the offset function. So you got to, once you are on the last cell of C column using the control down arrow, we will simply go and say that active cell, please offset me on the same row but on the column number 1, right? This is what we will do. So now I go and run this command F8. So now you are on the my margin indicator bar is not coming. Let me click OK. Yeah. So now you can see that you have got on the correct cell, and from here this is my command control shift up arrow. Once it is done, this is my control D, guys, to fill down, and you got the formula. Now you go to the E4. Now in the E4 you again pick up the the formula. Now this is my RC minus 2. You can see here RC minus 2 means that from my active cell I am going back 2 columns, 1 and 2, to look up the Ajay, right? So as I said that I never go in this detail that how this 5 3 4 coming, it's of no use to us, right? I record the macro, and I know when I recorded it I got it correct. If I found something unusual, I will again go and record it and replace this function. That's it. You got the mail. Now you go in the E4 again. You in the E4 now, so this is something I think in the E4 we edited, I think we got it edited some, I do not remember that step, but it is again writing the formula but with a little bit of changes, I think here. Yeah, I remembered we freeze the rows, I think. So when I do that, you can see that the dollar sign comes. So if you have done the correction in the macro, obviously That's same lines will be repeated, right? So we go in the C4 again, selection and Excel up down, and I go and copy this line again, and instead of this line you again go and paste this. So but this time it should be active cell 2, right? So I go and run this. Now you are on this E9, selection end dot Excel up. This is how it is. So this entire process works in this way, right? Again you go to the F4, you put the sign here. This will again put the dollars here in C3 to F9. You can see the dollars are there. Then again you again go to the C4, then control down arrow, and now from here you go and say that active cell should be, I should offset it by 3 columns, I think 1 2 3, yeah. You got on this up and fill down. That's how it is. So you want to use this way, you can use this way. There's no problem. I mean, you can use this way also. That's okay. But my motive is that you should know each and everything about the VBA, that they can also be written in your own way without recording the macros. But as I said, that recording macro is a very good thing. It gives you a lot of help. It's not that if you record the macros you're not a good programmer. Everybody uses it. It depends upon the scenario to scenario. You can use the functions, right? The inbuilt VBA functions. Now I will be talking about the user defined functions. So basically inbuilt functions, they are ready-made functions, and they are supposed to be used in some specific way. You really can't do much variations there, right? In fact, you can't do any variation there. That's how the arguments are set up, and that's how the arguments are supposed to be used, right? So if VLOOKUP has 4 parameter, you can't make it 3 parameter, 2 parameter. So that covers your VBA functions, how to use them. Now we will be talking about the important thing, which is called the user defined functions. Now I can go and create my own functions as well. For example, let me go and write here UDF. Now as I said that you can create a function of your requirement. For example, I write here employee ID, this, right? You write their age of network as well, and then you write the city, you know, they live. So they live in the tier 2, tier 1, and tier 3, and so on, right? And they have their age of network here. So I go and drag these functions. So we have the employee IDs here, and we have their age of network, right? This is the how it is. So this is the age of network in the months. So we have 3 months, 4 months, you know, and so on, let's say, or maybe let's say year. So we have 10 years and 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 7 years, and maybe 12 years and 3 years. And I go and copy this tier 1, tier 2, 3. Now I'm trying to tell you that instead of using the Excel function, you can go and create the VBA function as well. Of course, my first choice will be to create a simple Excel function here, but then creating in the VBA also has its own advantages, because then that can be used in any workbook, in any sheet within this workbook, right? Because you know, once you make the formula here, what is the formula, by the way? The formula is that if employee ID, age of network, and city, you know, if let's say employee ID age of network is greater than 5 and city is let's say tier 1, right? Then what is the increment? The increment is 15%, okay? And increment on what? On their salary, the current salary. So go and write here salary as well. So we have the salary as well coming here. So we want to revise this salary, right? Now what is the second thing I want to do? Well, the second thing is guys, if the employee ID age of network is greater than 5, you know, and the city is tier 3 or maybe tier 2, which is not that expensive, we will give them 10% hike. And same goes for the next clause, which is if the employee ID age of network is greater than 5 and they belong to tier 3, then we will go and give them the 5% hike. And if the employee ID is not greater than 5, they are not eligible. That's quite simple. We want the same value back here, right? Now the first thing which you need to understand, because we are talking about the function, if you now when I used to learn the functions, first I used to create their macros, subroutines, and once I become successful in creating a macro, then I go and try to convert that macro into a function. This is how I used to do the things. Now if you have to create a macro, not a function of this, how will you do that? You will run the loop, isn't it? You will run the loop 14 times. Let's go and check that. I insert the module. So here in this module I go and write UDF example. So before I create the UDF, I want to give a time on this. So let's not do the things so fast. We can create a subroutine. Subroutine would be easy for us because you already know that. So get salary is what I want to create, that subroutine. Okay. Now when I create the subroutine, I'm going to run this loop for j equals to row number 2 to 14. You can make this 14 dynamic. Next, and then dim j. This is how you do, guys, right? And then you will write here that so which cell you're targeting. You're targeting E, so you can write here range E, and then and what do you want to do? Dot value. This value should come something. I just go and write here JJJ for the time being, right? Now when you run this loop, you would do the comparison. You see that if in the row number cell, which is J, and the column number called 2, which is your B2, you can also write the range word also, that's okay. If the value in this column, if the value in the column B and the row number 2 is going to be greater than 5, and what is another condition? Another condition is that the cells in the same row number but in the 3 column, if it is going to be equals to tier 1. Spelling case sensitivity is very important. Please make sure you write in the uppercase if you have a data in the uppercase, because Excel VBA functions are case sensitive. Then what do you want to do? Well, then I want to do what? Then I want to write in the E. Now here also I can write the cells command, right? But I'm just trying to mix up all the things. So here what you write? You write here range, your salary is in the D column, same row number J, it should be multiplied with 1.15. 1.15 means 115% increment will be given to that person, right? What if this fails? So then you know how to write the else if. We have done this in the previous chapter. So I go and write here else if. I say that if it is tier 2, then it is 1.10, 110%. Simple. And then the another thing is, if it is tier 1, if it is tier 3, then it has to be 105%. Right? Else what? Else then finally you are done with all the conditions. What is left? Nothing is left actually. Then you just got to print that value, the same value here, isn't it? Because we don't want to give any hike, so you go and write here value. I should write here dot value, though without dot value also it will work, but just let's go and write that here. So you're getting the point how we're writing this macro? Very simple macro, just the if conditions and you're done with your job. So if I go and run this, I think I should be able to find out the values. There we go. Okay, next without for. Now I told you next without for comes often when you don't have the next word, or if you're writing the else, if is not closed. So I forgot the end if part. That is how it is, right? So I go and run this. Next without for, again I have a problem. Okay, now what is the problem? Yes, the problem is this is else if. You see how quickly we can check. I told you if the else if error is going to come, or if the error for next comes, that means the closing is not done. So basically it is else if, not if, because if you write two if, you have to close it in the two ways. You have to write two and if, right? This we have seen. So yeah, finally we are done, right? Okay, so this is how your code actually works. And we can see here now we have the increment 900 to 990 because of the reason tier 2, and then so on. So it is given the 10% increment. You talk about the age of network equals to 5. There is no salary increment because it is not greater than 5. So I think the code is working, right? Code is working perfect. Now guys, now if I talk about this, if you want to see this from the function perspective also and subroutine perspective also, now this code will always run on this. Now what if I have this data in some different sheet, or maybe here in different column also? You have to restructure your macro, because your macro is not meant for this sheet. But just like any Excel function can work in any sheet, you can write the VLOOKUP wherever you want. VLOOKUP does not need to be, there is no clause, there is no compulsion for the Excel users that they can write the VLOOKUP only in few sheets. That function is available in the entire workbook, and that can be written in any cell. When you create the functions, your own function UDF, that can be used anywhere. And the good thing about that is you can even tell the user that whatever city, whatever age of network they are supposed to use, they can use it. Doesn't matter. So let's go and check that. Now the first thing, to understand the functions, you got to first of all understand that how actually we write them. Okay, so this I go and write here. The first thing which you do is you write the function word, and then you go and give it a name. So let's say I want to give a function name called let's say I write a area of circle, open bracket, close bracket. What is the output of this function? Because I want to calculate the area of circle, my output would be long. Please write this. When you press enter, you see that you have the function created. Automatically the end function gets created. So function starts with the function keyword, subroutine starts with the subroutine word, the macro starts with the sub word. That's the basic difference. One more difference is, did you ever use any function which does not use any parameters? You talk about the VLOOKUP. Did you ever say that I don't want to use any parameter and I go and press enter? It never happened, isn't it? Take any function, length, they all have the parameters, right? Any function, maybe substitute, they all have parameters. There is no function in Excel which does not use the parameters. I remember now there is a two function called row and column, which we did in our Excel session also. If you do not know, if I just go and press enter, you see I'm not using any any reference here, though the parameter says that you use the reference. But let's say I don't use it. Actually what happens, by default it considered the row number of the cell where you're writing the formula. This function returns the row number of the Excel, right? So I'm right now on the 15th row, so you can see I got the 15 here. If you want to pass in the parameter, if you want to go and check the row number of this cell, which is C3, obviously the row number would be 3, so you can use that as well. But by default, if I go and don't write any parameter here, I press enter, it takes the parameter, it takes the row number, it returns the row number of the current cell. But in the background, this is also using a parameter. You may not use it, you may not be using it here, but when you press enter, actually Excel consider this parameter, considers the parameter as what? As the row number, as the cell where you're writing the formula, right, which is H17. So that's how you get it. Same way you have a column. If you don't write anything in the column, this will return the column parameter, isn't it? So by default it takes that parameter. Which parameter? So basically column is, you just need to select the cell to find out the column number of that cell. So let's say I want to find the column number of H4, which is obviously 8. H is on the 8th, it is the 8th alphabet if you start from A, right? But these parameters always, they are there, right? Now why I'm telling you all this? I'm telling you all this because the same rule applies on your VBA also. When you go and write the function, you have to tell the user that you got to choose something, because the function will work on those values, those parameters. Now in this particular example, area of circle, area of circle is pi r square, isn't it? Where pi is a constant 3.14 and r is a radius. Now since r is just a one parameter, so you have to write that here in this, r as long. This is how we write. This means that when I go and write here equals to area of circle, this starts showing me, and this has a one parameter. Your user can go and select this, and now the user press enter and the formula works and you will get some value. I show you. If I put the break code here, see what happens. I click enter. Do you see that function stops here because I put the break code? Now what is selected? 4400. Where it is? It is here. This is the connection you set up with the front part of the Excel. User select everything in the front part, but that front part goes in the background like this in the form of parameter. You can create 3 parameters, 4 parameters, anything you can create. Obviously I have not programmed it yet, that's why it is not giving me any output. So once you program it, once you start using this R, your function returns the value accordingly. So let's say I say that what is your let me declare here a variable called var as long, and I say that var is equals to pi is 3.14 multiplied by r, right? So finally you have the var, which is going to give you the area of the circle. If I go and press enter again here, I press enter, so this r is going to be used. This r is going to be used from this parameter. Automatically it will pick up. So what is the value in the var now? It's 60790400, right? That's my area of circle. So when you run this, you still get here 0. Why you get here 0, guys? The reason is there is a rule. The first rule you learned is that function must be given parameters, right? It depends on the scenario as to how many parameters we need. It can be 3, 2, 1, depends, right? So sometime maybe you don't want to create the, I'm not saying this is mandatory. I'll just give you example where we can go ahead and use the function without the parameter. But guys, 99.9% of the time we use the parameters because we want to take the values from the Excel. Now there is another thing, very interesting thing, which is that you cannot run the function on the F8 mode. If I go and press F8 or if I go and click step into, you see it is not working. So please don't ring me and say that my function is not working. I'm making it clear right away. You cannot use the step 8. Why? Because this needs some value. Without giving this value, you cannot use this. So what is the solution then? If I have to do the testing, as I said, put the break code, go into Excel, write the function, provide the parameter, and then press enter. When you press enter, because of the break code, Excel VBA will immediately find out this function in the code in whatever module you have written, and it will stop there. And from there now you can go and use the F8. Okay, so this is the one of the difference in the subroutine and function. They ask you in your interviews, what is the difference between function and a sub? You can tell them function starts with the function word, it ends with the end function word. Subroutine is a sub, obviously ends up. Well, telling the function starts with the function word and the subroutine starts with the sub word. The function always needs the parameters. They can be used in any sheet, in any cell. However, subroutines, they are specific to sheets, they are specific to cells, because in the subroutines you just go and write the set of instructions which are executed, which gets executed by the subroutine. by the macro. But in function, basically use the parameters, and those parameters then further go and get once they get inside the function coding, they get calculated, and then function eventually returns a value, right? So function returns a value. However, your subroutine executes the lines, the instructions which you have set up. Function uses the parameters, and subroutine does not use the parameters, right? Now for your information, you can create a subroutine also which can use the parameters, but generally we don't do that. We always create the functions for the parameters, right? So now when I run this, you see I run this and I still get here 0. Calculation is happening in the var, but there is a rule. This is also something you can tell them, that when you write the function, before the end function, you must write the function name, that what value finally it is achieving, and this is how it works. So we are saying that my function name, which is area of circle, that is equals to what? That is equals to var. You could also write area of circle equals to 3.14 multiply r. So no need to declare the var. That is also okay. Now when I go and press enter, you see that guys, it is working. It captures the D9 value. Not only this, even if you go and write area of circle, let's say 10, press enter, it is going to show you 314. It needs the value. How it is coming? It is not going to check that. You write directly the value inside the function, or you pick that value from any subroutine, from any cell. That's okay. And as you know, as I said, that this is available everywhere. And not only this, just like any other function, inbuilt functions, this can be dragged also. So let's say I want to find this area of circle of this number. You got the 314. When you drag it, what will happen? I9 will change to I10, and then so on. Look at this, how fast this is. Your user does not even know that it's going in the background. It is so fast, and it is doing the calculation on all the different parameters. But what if I write here area of circle and I select this? You know what will happen now? You will get the error. Why? Because your function needs the long. It cannot work on the string. Obviously this calculation will also go wrong. Now how about if I go and create, let's say, area of circle, and I go and let's say choose two parameters, this and this. Now both are numbers. Will this work? No. Why? Because your function is designed to handle only one parameter. You want to check what is happening in the background? See this. I go and press enter. Now when you press enter, okay, sorry, I think it's not picking up. It's not even picking it up. I again put the break code here. Go write area of circle 10, 3. It's not even going there, guys. I mean, it's not even stopping here, because you're giving two parameters, right? But what if I say that one more parameter I create, which is a as long. I'm not going to use this a here right now, but I'm just trying to tell you, will this now work? Okay, let's go and check that. You have created two parameter, and here also you're using the two parameter. The moment you press enter, you see that it is immediately picked up. This is how the function works. You have a full control. If you want the user should enter two parameter, she has to enter two parameters, because you have designed these two parameters here. So now when you go and run this, what will happen? Your R will take the first parameter, which is I9, this is the one, and your A will take the another parameter, which is 3. This is how we design the things. So what we learned? We can say here, let's quickly go and write that. So function always returns a value in Excel sheet. Sub executes the instructions or VBA lines, whatever you want to write, right? Okay, function starts with function keyword and ends with end function. Your sub starts with subword and ends with end sub. You know that. This is a very basic thing. Function can be used in entire workbook, any worksheet. Very simple. Subroutine works on specific sheets and ranges. They can't blind you. I mean, you can follow them, right? If I have to run the macro on this row, my program will first go here and start working, right? If I put my data somewhere else and I then run the same macro and I complain that my developer hasn't done the good job, it is not like that, right? He has to modify the macro. This is how. These are the things you should know. And of course, you can say that function uses parameters almost every time. So when I say almost every time, it means that almost every time, guys, means more than 99%, right? However, subroutine does not uses parameters. Did you ever see any macro which runs with the parameters like sub, and then you write sub a, and then in the brackets, you are providing the parameters? It is not. You don't find it. Hardly any one or two macro. We can talk on that also. I mean, I can show you practically what I'm saying. We can set up some parameters. I'll talk about it. But right now, these are the important points you should understand. So now let's come back to our real topic. I wanted to show you the function which can go and create the salary. So you want to create a function. You have already created one function. You know how the functions are created. If you go back to your macro, you know how this macro is created, isn't it? This macro. So what I can do is, you can create the new macro from the scratch, your choice. But how I used to learn is, I used to make the macro for it. When the macro ran successfully, I used to copy that and I used to then paste it here. And then what I used to do, I simply used to change this subword to a function. Though now I don't do that, because now I I must write here what is the data type I want to give it. Now I go and start thinking this entire code from the function perspective. Now you see that, guys, you want to write a function which has a name called get salary. So let's say I want to be famous in my company, and I just write here Anand. Okay, Anand, get my salary. This is what I'm going to write the function name. You can do that, of course, Malesh, whatever you want to write it, right? But generally, this is just on the serious note, you should write a function. You should give it a name, something which makes a lot of sense also, right? So I write this. Now what do you want to do? You want to, so in this entire code, if you look at this, your code is running on the two things, the salary and, sorry, not the salary, the Aeon and the city. Aeon and city get compared, and then in the salary it gets added, multiplied. So basically three things you are using, isn't it? Yes, we are using the three things. So that means if I go and create a function with three parameters where user can go and choose. So for example, when he writes equals to Anand, this is what the function comes. Unfortunately, this will not tell the user that how many parameters it has, because it is your own created function. So you have to tell the user then that first they go and select the Aeon, and then the city, and then the salary. This is the sequence they should always follow. Okay, so this is what I do. Now when I go and press enter, I want to go and obviously run it. So this is what we are going to plan. So what I do, I create here three parameters. Can we do that? What is the first parameter? The first parameter is my age of network. So you can create here Aeon as well. Let's create a age of network as Aeon as long, city as string. Now guys, I'm writing a city. You can write whatever you want. When we give the name to the variable, we can't use the special character, we can't use any VBA reserved word, right? Otherwise you can write whatever. I mean, you can also write my city, that's okay. I'm just using the headers just to make myself comfortable, right? It has nothing to do with actually the headers. So and I write here salary, so I go and write here sal as long, right? So finally when I put the break code here, what do you want to do? So all the values would come here. Now when the value would come here, the first thing is you do not need the loop now, because at a time function will execute only on the one line. You're not going to write the function like this. You select the entire table and then you start writing the function. This is not how you write, right? You just write the function once and then you drag it. When you drag it, automatically B2, C2, D2 will change to B3, C3, D3. That means there is no requirement for the loop. This is another wonderful thing about the function. I mean, I would say not the wonderful thing, but the difference. Can you see the difference? You don't have to go, because the function, when I write, I press enter and I want to see the output. And if I have to run it somewhere else, I just go and drag it. That's my choice. So that is how it differs. So you first go and remove the looping part. This. We don't need it. Simple. You just need the if function. Now in the if function also, what you need? Are you really dependent upon these row numbers? Of course not. Why? Because those values will directly come from the user, from the front end. So you go and write here that the value which is coming from the aeon parameter, if aeon is greater than 5, if my city, which is a variable I have created, is that equals to tier 1, then what do you want to do? Then you don't want to print this in the EJ, because you do not know where the user will write the function. What do? You write the function name, as I said, Anand get my salary, okay, or maybe Anand salary, let's say, get salary. I just go and write like this, short name, copy this, paste it here. So the function should get what? What should the function get? Salary multiplied by 1.15. So simple, right? You just go and copy the same thing here, you go and paste it here, you go and paste it here. So function will get the value from here, and here nothing, only the salary would come. 1.05, 105%. And here you don't write anything. So here the function returns the same value. So function you have to write the function name. As I said, that's a rule, right? So any else if will be executed, all the else if will not be executed. We know that whichever else if or if part gets executed, I will make sure that that value should go back to the Anand underscore get salary. This is how it is. Okay, so now let's go and quickly change all the things. So this is my aeon, quite easy I think for us. We can write here aeon. This is also my aeon, and then you have my city, and then you have my city. Finally, I think we are done with this. This is not required. I don't know what is it. Let's get rid of it. Okay, so let's go and check that. Now obviously I have to put the break code here to run it. Okay, I go here, I write here Anand. You just type the Anand get salary. Make sure the people use the correct parameter, otherwise you will have a problem. For example, I use this tier 1 as the first parameter, then I use this, and then I use this. Your calculation will go wrong here, isn't it? When you press enter, you will have the problem. Why? Because the first parameter cannot be used for the long, because you selected C2 is what? String, and here your first parameter demands the long. That is a problem. Okay, so it will never be read in the background. So make sure my user should tell her properly that these are the parameters. They can write it somewhere if they forget. So B2, tier 1, and then salary. 3 parameters, press enter, there we go. Let's pick up the values now. Have you got the values? What is aeon? 10. What is my city? Tier 2. What is my salary? Rest you already know. So in this will fall in which parameter? Let's go and check that. So it falls in this parameter, greater than 5 and tier 2. So now your function would do what? It will multiply that 900 which is coming from here, guys. from this d2, multiplied it with what, 1.10, and finally your function has 990. So when you now run this, you see that in the background you have the 990 coming. I remove the break code now, I just go and drag this now. You see that you got the same answer. I find some of the answers same, some of the answers are different. Why is that? Maybe I go and check that. So 1.15, 1.10, I think maybe I have changed the, it's 1.1 and this is 1.05. That's why the output was coming different. If I run this, 1.05, and here it is 1.05, and in the else nothing, because if nothing satisfies, the same salary. Let me go and press enter here again. There we go. You see that same value now coming. Now what is the good thing? As I said that you can write it anywhere. Your HR wants to calculate today on this sheet, as long as they are going to use this in the same sheet. So they can go and use the, start typing the Anand, and they can go and use the A answer here. Now why we're getting the wrong answer here? Let's go and check that. Am I not using the proper parameters? Yes, not. Sorry, my mistake. This is salary got selected, which is a string. I should have used this K9. There we go. Now you understand the difference. So you can create any sort of your own user defined functions. This is how it is. In the next session now, when we meet, I'm going to talk about how to use the arrays and functions together, because in the last chapter we did the arrays. And, but for now you must practice on all these things. You should go through this video, this chapter again and again. The assignments which I have I'm going to share with you, please go and work on those assignments as well.